Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Devin Allen, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Jerry Dickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation today will be delivered by Reverend Raul Gutierrez and Western Hills United Methodist Church. Good to see you again, sir. Thank you very much for coming out today.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you, sir?
Let us pray. Most gracious and loving God, we stand before you to ask your blessing. The blessing that is ours when we feel your presence, when we feel that you have selected us for a special task. And so on this morning, we ask your blessing upon our county judge, Glenn Whitley, his commissioners, Roy Brooks, Devin Allen, Gary Fix, J.D. Johnson. May the spirit of wisdom that allows us to open our ears and hear and listen to the concerns of our county. May compassion run through this courthouse in such a way that the concerns of the people are valued, heard, and acted fairly. Let truth dominate our presentations, and let compassion be the measuring stick of our time together at the public square, at the courthouse of Tarrant County. This we ask in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Thank you, Reverend, for coming out today. We appreciate you very much.
Good to see you again, my friend.
Mr. Manius, agenda announcements.
Your Honor, we do not have any announcements this morning.
Hey, great. Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of February the 5th.
Second.
We have motion to second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Court members, you have before you the consent agenda.
Move approval of the consent agenda. Second.
We have motion to second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. We do not have any proclamations. Just, I guess, a couple of comments. One, Commissioner Fickus, you had a very successful transportation conference. Congratulations on that last week.
It went very well.
Most impressive.
Had a great turnout. Commissioner Brooks was there, Judge was there. Thank everybody else that came. I know Wendy was there. We had a great and wild. Thomas, the clerk, was there. And,
We don't have donuts today. He's gone.
yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. There he is.
But it worked out real well, and we had a great turnout. So thank you.
Commissioner Johnson, now that I've gotten you a check, do you have anybody on that list that's...
I just wanted to tell you that our newest commissioner did get her check in before yours.
Well, that's all right. That's all right. She's trying to one-up me here. That's okay. Well,
But yours was the last, and Alice just received it.
thank you, Alice.
Thank you.
I guess with that, we'll move right along. And
Please, if I may.
oh, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
The last announcement. This coming Saturday morning, February 16th, at 10 o'clock a.m. at the Moncrief Cancer Care Institute, 400 West Magnolia Avenue. Precinct 1 will be sponsoring its 5th annual prostate cancer education and screening event. We are asking men and the women who love men, if they can't get the man to come on his own, bring him. It's important that you know your prostate status. If you know, you can do something about it. If you don't know, you're likely to die. So knowing is important. Come out to this free event on Saturday. Free breakfast, free education about prostate cancer, free screening, free lunch. Come and share some fellowship with other men who want to learn about this cancer. Share some fellowship with members of the Texas Rangers Baseball Club. Prostate cancer is a national initiative of Major League Baseball. And there will be others there to help make it a fun day of learning and life-saving. Again, that's Saturday morning, February 16th, 10 o'clock, Moncrief Cancer Care Institute, 400 West Magnolia. Thank you, Judge.
Commissioner Allen.
Yes, I wanted to share with everyone that next Saturday, February 23rd, Mansfield ISD, in partnership with Inspired, which is a nonprofit organization that promotes college going, will be hosting an event that's sponsored by United Way. It's called Destination Success. So next Saturday, February 23rd, from 8 to 12:30 p.m. at the Mansfield ISD Performing Arts Center. So high school students or even junior high students, parents, you can go and get information on how to successfully complete your FAFSA or your TASFA. You can get information on the SAT, the ACT, and financial literacy. So again, that's next Saturday, February 23rd in Mansfield. And if you have any questions, please contact Kelly Rodriguez in our office.
Would you give the time again for clarification?
Sure, it's 8 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. So they have a few different breakout sessions, and you get to pick based off of information that you need.
Commissioner Fickus.
Yes, we are having a March of Dimes march and walk on April the 13th. And this is to raise awareness and a few dollars for pre-birth, early birth of infants and helping their mothers on education and information. Tarrant County has an extremely high infant mortality rate.
Indeed.
And it is something that we have been aware of, and I know that Commissioner Brooks, your efforts and JPS's efforts have helped. It has improved a little bit, but the pre-birth rate is still, pre-birth rate, not infant mortality rate, is just under 10%. So 10% of the babies require some type of assistance upon birth. This is extremely costly procedures, and in a lot of cases, it can be prevented through education. So we're hoping to have 10,000 walkers for this walk, and
Not just from the county.
not just from the county, but we're working to see if we can get 400 people from Tarrant County to walk in this walk. It's on April 13th. That's a Saturday. This morning, I was able to speak to a number of elected officials here and department heads. So we're asking our department heads and all elected officials to try to participate, but more importantly, to also, along with them participating, have their staff and their personnel participate. And by doing that, we'll hit our our 400 number, I think. We're going to meet at Panther Island Pavilion. It's going to be a great day, a fun day. You get a T-shirt, and there's a nominal fee to participate in this. But I'll get back with all the department heads here in the next week with the information where you can sign up and get all the individuals in your departments to also sign up. So it's going to be a fun time for a good cause. Thank you.
Precinct 1 is in.
Precinct
In.
2.
I won't be walking, but I'll see if I can find somebody.
You find a proxy. All right. Wilder is our chairman.
He's bringing the donuts.
Donuts.
He volunteered just a little bit ago to bring the donuts.
Eating them.
To bring 10,000 donuts.
If TK will pay for it.
That's not gonna happen.
That wasn't what you said. You said you'd bring the donuts.
That's what I heard.
Donuts is all I committed.
I will certainly be there, and I feel like there'll probably be some folks from my office there, and we'll see what we can do to raise some money for March of Dimes. Thank you very much for kind of heading that up. Anything else?
In my precinct, by the way.
There you go. GK.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, before we get into our section, if I could just add on to something that Commissioner Fickus said. Commissioner Fickus and I discussed the March of Dimes issue earlier this morning, and we're trying to remember, we had some photographs that were shown in court, actually some slides from some different walks last year, and I wanted to be the first one to donate some money to you, Judge. We're asking that you get yourself a new pair of shorts, and you ask Miss Whitley to help you pick them out this time, okay?
Well, it was a little wet out there last time. If I hate to think of the kind of shorts I can buy for $1. So if you want to up that a little bit, we might
go to the 99-cent store.
I hate to think about you wearing the shorts you wore last year.
I'm standing up.
You get some plastic ones.
I tell you what,
Commissioner Allen, it was not a pretty sight. It was just.
I tell you what I might do, just to encourage folks to, and I've not said this to anybody. This is just one of these off-the-cuff comments that my wife says I really should never do. But what I will say is that for the individual who raises the most money, they might get to throw a pie in the face of the county judge.
Ooh, I like it.
I have a contributor right here. First in the door.
So we'll look at that and consider that. And I'm also very much in favor of the T-shirts. If you go to some of these walks, and I haven't seen you at any of these thus far, Mr. Manius, but if you go to some of these walks,
I was in the front of the pack.
you see you'll see an organization that has all the same color T-shirts.
Yeah.
And so maybe we ought to look at, and I'll look at HR with the volunteer, maybe we ought to look at we're going to adopt a color and everybody, and in that way when the county volunteers for Heart Walks or Meals on Wheels or whatever they do, if they're wearing that county T-shirt, then folks will recognize that the county is out there in force to do that. But so think about that as we talk about the T-shirts, and then again, you need to come up with a whole lot more money if you want me to get another pair of shorts. And if you might put a couple of zeros into this, and you might be the one that could throw the pie in the county judge's face.
Well, that's going to be pretty stiff competition on that one, Judge.
Well, it could be. It could be. There might be a few people in here that would like to have that opportunity. So.
Oh, yeah.
I was just starting the fun drive. I wasn't going to.
Now, would you like to move on to your business at hand?
Absolutely. Members of the Court, we have two items this morning for action. The first one We're requesting that the Commissioners Court consider a resolution in opposition of House Bill 2 and Senate Bill 2 relating to property tax reform. I would like to also point out that on this resolution, it's not just an opposition resolution, but it also encourages the legislature to view and act on various other pieces of legislation or items. So we're asking for your comments, and as usual, in order for this to be effective, we'll need a unanimous vote of the Commissioners Court.
I move approval with the strongest motion that I can make.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I spoke a little bit to this last week at the Senate hearing, and I think that we have been led to believe that that we do have skyrocketing property taxes, and I'm not saying that if the state would do their share, property taxes could actually be reduced. But I want folks to realize when we look at overall taxes in this state, we rank 29th on a per capita basis when we rank against the other states. And when it comes to a percentage of personal income, which is the other number that sometimes they like to put out there, we're 38th. The world is not coming to an end. Although Chicken Little is alive and well, I don't believe that the world is coming to an end in this regard. So I fully support this. Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Just a comment, Senate Bill 2 was passed out of committee yesterday.
Yes.
So,
the railroad is working.
So, Members Court, a week ago to item number 2. This is also a legislative policy issue. It's a policy statement, and it supports proposals for lowering county property taxes through a sales tax and use tax. This is not bill specific, except we do know that Representative Guerin has filed House Bill 705, and Representative Krause has filed House Bill 648.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Tidwell.
We have one item for the court's consideration this morning, and that's the approval and release of the $50 million of collateral that's outlined in your court communique.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Ms. Glenn.
Move to receive and file personnel agenda.
Second. We have a motion and a second to receive and file the personnel agenda. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Good morning, Ms.
Thank
Glenn.
you.
Good morning. Status of the Express Scripts.
So there's, I think, some good progress made. I don't know if you were copied on, I think the most recent communication that Ann Diamond sent from the Criminal District Attorney's Office. And so what she communicated was that during their telephone conference last week or week before, I think week before last, so all of the entity attorneys who participated agreed on language. That language was sent to Express Scripts. Their attorneys were in the process of reviewing it. Ms. Diamond did send, I think, 4 or 5 questions that she's asked us to prepare answers for. We're in the process of preparing those answers. And then once we're done with that, those answers will go back to her. And I think we're going to get those back to her today. Maybe we got them back yesterday. I'm not sure. Joyce Kirk was responsible for preparing those answers. But the report that we've gotten so far is everything looks really good. And I think Ms. Diamond is really optimistic that we're going to get this thing settled. So that's my report.
When are we going to get this thing settled?
I don't know that her and Robin or someone, correct me if you have a different recollection. I don't believe that there was a date in Ann Diamond's email. Again, it was, I think, approval was contingent upon our responses to her questions. And I think additional conversations then would happen with Express Scripts. I don't believe that there is a date that was referenced.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Why are we?
Why is Ann waiting on questions from us as opposed to waiting on responses from? I'm completely now thrown off by this business of you've got to get answers back to Ann.
Right. So again, there were 4 or 5 questions. I don't have the questions committed to memory, but the questions had to do with provisions that are in the agreement. I think she was trying to get clarification. Apparently there was discussion about those agreements. I don't know. I wasn't on the phone call. It was the attorneys who were all talking. So that's my understanding of what's going on. And again, I don't have a date. Does anybody recall a date in her correspondence? Yes.
The next call with the lawyers is on the 15th.
Okay.
Comments back on everything from the last comments call will be today.
Okay.
So we're 2 years, 6 weeks into a contract that we don't have a written contract for.
Correct.
I had a question.
Mhm.
You mentioned that documents went back to Express Scripts attorneys for review. Were they not in the meeting, the telephone meeting?
So my understanding of the process was that there was a telephone conference call. The areas of disagreement were discussed, and Diamond came away from that meeting, that telephone conference call, reported that progress had been made in the meeting. She forwarded to us 4 or 5 questions, and Diamond did, that she'd like for us to respond to, and so those responses are being prepared.
But my question, my question was Express Scripts involved in that telephone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they were.
Okay.
Okay.
I will have the same question next Tuesday.
I fully anticipate it.
And maybe just so that you're not the one that catches all of the flack, maybe Ann ought to be here too. Come on down, Vinny. I hope you have good news.
Well, I'll have a simple request. Good morning, sir. Good morning, everybody. So Public Health has one request this morning for your consideration. It's for approval of memorandums of understanding between Tarrant County and various clients for laboratory testing. You've seen this last couple of times. Again, we receive state funding to do free STD testing. So these are various entities that we're signing MOUs with, just cleaning up, making sure it's official.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion to second. Any discussion?
Yes, some discussion.
Yes.
Vinny, I'm getting a lot of feedback from constituents
Sure.
about the new fee schedule that we adopted that rather substantially raised the cost of certain injections to the public. And the feedback I am getting is that people can no longer afford to get those services from the public health department because our fee schedule is so high. What you got to say about that?
Sure. So the current fee schedule that we have is based on a physician's fee reference, and we tried to pick around the 75th percentile. So this was based off of market research. We talked to JPS, we talked to FQHC, because they are in the business like us, being a public entity, but still providing some clinical service. Well, we provide some clinical, so they provide a lot more clinical services. So it's based off of that. Now, JPS has a more robust model where they go 200% of Medicare for billing purposes. And they have, because they're a facility, they have not only professional fees, but also facility fees. We don't have that. We just have the one lumped in together. So based off of that, the fee schedule is set on that. But we don't expect anybody to actually pay the posted fee schedule. The way it's working is that's the billable amount. We're expected, even in our state contract from grants, we're expected that we exhaust all third-party resources before they become the payer. And of course, county's always the payer of last resort. I mean, we don't want to have anything fall to the local dollars that contribute, but it does happen on a variety of services. So to bill third-party payers, the common rule of thumb is that you must bill everybody the same, right? So if a service is going to cost $100, I'm going to bill you, county judge, $100, and if you have insurance, that bill is going to go to your insurance company. But if you were paying out of pocket, and let's say you don't have insurance, I'm going to give you the same bill, but because you say, well, I can take care of the bill today, I'm paying out of pocket, we have a self-pay fee schedule that gives them about a 40% discount. So discounts range in the industry between 50% and 30%. 30% and 50% are the discounts. So we picked right in the middle. We're giving a 40% discount. You pay a 60%. So that's the first discount available to the general public who is uninsured or doesn't bring their insurance card. We're supposed to verify. We ask them, but we take their word for it. If they say, well, I don't have insurance, are you able to take care of your bill today? Then you owe $60. And if they say, well, I can't afford the $60, then we go an extra step and asking them for any proof of income. So they can bring their pay stubs, tax paperwork, any housing assistance letters, variety of there's a whole list of things. And then we put them through what is called a sliding fee scale. So if they qualify based on income and family size, then their amount due could go all the way down to zero. And there's like a variety of scales. So it goes from 0, 10% due, 25% due, 50% due, 60% due, 75% due, and so on and so forth. So that's how we worked on it, in the latest iteration. But I'm also getting the same feedback from a lot of our clients that this is too high. There's, of course, a lot of learning that goes along with it. And we're still considering a few things. That we're looking at some laboratory tests. I have reached out to our state partners about seeing how we can, not get up all of their contract and offer these services for a reduced price. But we're kind of caught in between.
Vinny, I understand what you just said, which seems to be directed at a method of serving everyone, regardless of their ability to pay. But there is apparently a breakdown in communications because people are walking away from public health without being served. And that should not happen.
I would highly doubt that.
They may not be coming in because they see a fee schedule that they know they can't afford.
That might be more realistic, where they called on the phone and before somebody could explain the full information, when they heard the total price, they said, okay, bye, I'm not coming here. That is possible. But walking away, we offer services, and there's notices posted on the door that, regardless of your ability to pay, you'll be serviced and given all the medical care that you need from whatever we have available. And I'll tell you this, that a lot of these people, like sometimes when they see the bill, oh, my bill is going to be $1,400. Well, I don't have that to pay. We offer them all of these options, and they end up paying sometimes nothing. And we leave that on the books. Now, we don't send people to collections, but because we now accept money from insurance companies, we're supposed to show an effort to collect. And the way we're doing that is every time they come in, they're reminded that they owe us a balance. And after a while, we'll bring all of that, with the auditor's office and, hopefully try to get that cleaned up, here, saying, okay, can you bless this balance as bad debt and go away. But we don't send any, and again, this is learning from the work that we do in public sector. It's not very popular to send statements and try to collect on people and so forth. So we remind them at every visit that they have a balance due, but we don't actually send them to collection. So when we're the most lenient that you can find, in the public sector arena from collection standpoint. But we're required. That's unfortunate.
What good does it do us to saddle someone with a bill that we know at the outset that they have no ability to pay?
It's to stay on good terms with the insurance companies that we made our genuine effort to collect on that bill. And we're collecting the same from everybody, regardless.
Good terms with the citizens that we serve.
Right, but again, the effort has to be made because we're legally required. If you're going to accept money from insurance companies, you're required to treat everybody the same. The alternative is that you don't accept money from insurance companies and you only collect fees, nominal charges. But I will tell you that it saddles us as the local health department with a lot of unpaid bills.
What we're talking about here is the root of the whole problem with medicine today in that we're artificially setting a fee so that the insurance company can get reimbursed, or so that we can get reimbursement from the insurance company. Right. And in effect, the insurance company, so you do that, and now I walk in and I have Tarrant County insurance.
Correct.
So I could pay zero if I didn't have Tarrant County insurance, and Tarrant County gets to pay $100 because we're self-insured for that same thing. And
right, and
it's such a, we can sit here and talk about this.
Yes.
For 20 years, it's the problem with the whole healthcare thing.
And let me just say one more thing. The insurance company also doesn't pay the $100. See, that's the crux of the matter here. That's just the billed amount. They usually pay what is called usual and customary reimbursement. So it's anywhere between $50, $60, and that's what, and the result is that's how the discounts came about. That, yes, if you are insured and you get a group discount, your insurance company only pays $60 on the $100 bill. Being uninsured, we're not going to charge you anymore. We're going to show that the bill is $100 because you got billed the same amount, but you owe us $60 right off the bat if you're paying out of pocket, but you take care of the bill today.
And usually the insurance company is paying you some percentage above Medicare.
It varies, yes, sir. Yes, sir. And most of our clients have Medicaid, so it's very limited.
The one that really gets hurt in this is the uninsured who has money.
Right. That they are caught in the middle. That's correct. Yes, sir. And I'll tell you, most of our clientele are either straight Medicaid, which is little, because in Tarrant County we have managed Medicaid mostly. And so they pay at Medicaid rate, which is way below what we get. Just to give you one example, administration fees for a vaccine, Medicare would reimburse $37. Medicaid pays us $7.95. So that's what we get from most of our clients. To administer a shot, that's what we get. Now, if it's a private purchased vaccine, then we'll have a fee of that vaccine involved as well, the actual medication. But a lot of our clients get VFC or adult safety net vaccine, which is free to us from the state, so it's free to the client. We only charge administration fees. So that's how we.
What does JPS charge for how do our charges compare with JPS's charges?
I can do a comparison, but they are usually higher because it's 200% of Medicare. And also they have a facility fee. So when you take it all together, it's going to be high, but it's a whole, their services are a lot bigger than ours. They're a full hospital. We're like a small doctor's office, I have 6 providers.
One final question. We create these delinquent accounts for people, and you say that they don't go to collections. Do they go to the credit bureau?
No. It stays with us in the health department. The plan is to work with the auditor's office to get that written off in commissioner's court. You guys have to bless it as bad debt. Till then, it stays on the books. It is not the best way to do things, but that's unfortunately how the public sector stuff is working. I've talked to a couple of these partners, and they're all struggling. And we're unfortunately on the leading edge of billing for local health departments in Texas. So a lot of other health departments are even struggling with this. We're still trying to get more insurance contracts. Unfortunately, we don't yet have a contract with United Healthcare, our own insurance company. We're making progress towards that over the last couple of years. But, that's because they see us as a very small business that they're going to have. 6 providers, we're not even close to a small doctor's practice. So we're not on their radar. We are the ones who need them because whatever money we get from them becomes program income that goes towards paying off that bad debt that we have, because we're trying not to let it fall to the bottom line that the county taxpayer shouldn't have to foot the bill. All right.
You've got a motion.
And a second. There's no other discussion. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Jack, come on down. I know you're excited by the fact that Ole Miss got sanctioned, and y'all have a couple more victories now than what you had last night.
On April the 6th, which is my birthday in Fayetteville, Arkansas, we're conducting the Arkansas Spring Game. Love to see all of you there.
Don't hold your breath.
Probably be our first victory of 2019, but we have ourselves. And before I forget about it, thanks, Vinny. We have two items for your consideration this morning. Our first item is a bid award recommendation for bid 2019-074. This is our annual contract for lumber and building materials. Our recommendation be to award on a per enterprise basis and a discount from list price awarding to the primary and secondary vendors as shown in the court communique.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our last item is item in regards to RFP 2016-043. This is an RFP for employee drug and alcohol testing. We're asking the court for a 60-day contract extension. This is the item I talked about last week where the commercial recorder did not advertise properly, only once and twice to comply with state law. And we're asking for the additional 60 days to get the bid back on the street.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Commissioner Fickus.
Yes, I have an interlocal with the City of Euless. I move for approval of interlocal 8M1A and B.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Are there any appointments today? There being none, then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have three items to bring to you this morning. The first one deals with the regulation of game room operations as it relates to public health, safety, and welfare updates. I'm going to begin that presentation. I'm going to ask that I may be asking some of our staff and the DA's staff to also comment as we go through and try to answer some of the questions that
we also have three public comments dealing with that, and so as we wrap up your part of it, then what I'll do is I'll call on those comments.
Very good. Thank you, Your Honor. So, first of all, in the last legislative session, or maybe the session before that, there was a particular bill that actually extended the population caps on the ability of commissioners' courts to regulate game rooms. Initially, that particular statute dealt mainly with Harris County. And with our increased population and a decrease in the population cap that would allow this particular piece of legislation to also apply to other counties, Tarrant County was part of that. We have a historical timeline to a certain extent as to how it first came to court, and I see that Ms. Travis is also one of the the individuals who have asked to address the court. Ms. Travis came to the Commissioner's Court in January of 2018, and she began to raise issues concerning game rooms, which were being operated in her neighborhood. She reported that to the court that within a 1 mile radius of her home that there were at least 10 known game rooms. Now, we need to understand that game rooms are not simply what a lot of people refer to as 8-liners, because there is an enforcement effort made by local police departments and the sheriff's department and to target game 8-liners. And you might remember that we have historically enforced that in the unincorporated area. And we've collected and confiscated a large number of machines. Game rooms are different. And the interesting thing about this particular statute, unlike a lot of statutes that we have where the Commissioner's Court can only do some part of zoning and code enforcement, lies within the unincorporated area. This statute actually allows for the court to enact an ordinance that is comprehensive in nature, that it covers the entire county, which means it can be applied inside the city limits of our municipalities. And that's an important thing to remember, because as we discuss this, we're going to have some conversations with you as it relates to these type of activities within a municipality. And so as Ms. Travis talked about, these game rooms we're in a residential neighborhood, and they were unregulated. And she asked that the Commissioners Court look into this and encouraged us to think about enacting an ordinance that dealt with game rooms.
GK?
Yes, sir.
Can and I know you'll probably tell me in a minute, but what you're talking about now, are these in unincorporated areas or in the city limits?
City limits.
They're in both.
They are all over the place.
But they're somewhat different, and let me explain the difference.
Okay.
A game room, in order for it to qualify to fall under this particular statute, there needs to be at least 6 or more devices, machines. You may go to a service station or to a truck stop, and you may see 1 or 2 of these machines. That's not a game room. The statute pretty clearly defines what a game room is, and it's a facility that has a for-profit machine that has either 6 or more machines in that facility. So it doesn't encompass every time you see a location that you see an 8-liner, if you will, but it really focuses on areas where a majority of the business, or at least a substantial part of the business, are these machines. So we began to first look at that in January of 18. In March of 18, we began to hold staff meetings, internal staff meetings, and it included the district attorney's office. It included representatives from Precinct 1, simply because Commissioner Brooks was the commissioner that raised this issue, and this particular location is in Precinct 1. And so we began to look at where these ordinances existed. And really, when you look at these ordinances, really there's only one big county, at least at that time, that had an ordinance, and that was Harris County. And you know the makeup of Harris County. About half the population of Harris County lives inside the city limits of Houston, and there's other municipalities there, but the other half lives outside the city limits of Houston. So, and a lot of people live in the unincorporated area. So we began to talk about how this would fit within Tarrant County. And we also realized that because we have 41 different municipalities, that we really needed to talk with the cities, because this is, I go back to this whole issue that this is one of the few times a commissioner's court actually has the authority to impose an ordinance within municipalities. And so that was different. So we wanted to make sure that at least we received reflections and thoughts from different cities. And obviously the 2 big cities in Tarrant County, the city of Fort Worth and the city of Arlington. And eventually I went out and visited with the city managers of those 2 cities, and then eventually we asked those 2 city managers and their staff to come in and talk with us also on this to fully understand. One of the things that was driving this, and that we initially thought, our first question was, well, why doesn't the municipality enforce the zoning and code enforcement activities? Because that's a routine function, an everyday function of a municipality. We tend not to do that. The reason we don't do that is because we don't have the authority to do that. We do that in very limited cases, and those cases tend to involve junkyards in the unincorporated area, and all of our favorite issue, sexually oriented commercial businesses. And that's really the only 2. There may be another one, but those are the 2 activities that we actually have some type of zoning and code enforcement type responsibilities. The important thing to know about that is that when you look at junkyards and you look at SOBs, we really don't have that many in the unincorporated area. And so it's fairly easy for us to enforce our regulations on those industries with the staff that we have. Game rooms are going to change that. Game rooms are going to change that. So as we go down this historical review, we continue to meet with both of the cities, And we also met with, and then Ms. Travis came back to court. And we developed a relationship with Harris County since they had gone through the processes. And so what we wanted to do was to see where the pitfalls were. And Megan, south from our office, really developed a good relationship with the county attorney's office in Harris County. And we also wanted to look at how they do this and what their ordinance looked like. And we received a copy of that ordinance, and we made distributions to the district attorney's office because we wanted the district attorney's office to look at that document to see if, in fact, the Commissioner's Court wanted to move forward with this, that we would have a starting point in developing a document. We also tried to find out how Harris County did the enforcement effort. And so Harris County, they're allowed to do, by the interlocal agreement statute, Harris County tended to contract with the municipalities to actually do the enforcement. The county created the ordinance, and then through an ILA, the cities then enforced that ordinance. And so we continue to work through that, and so as we continued our discussions with the municipalities, and by the way, we have sent out through the mayor's council staff notices that we were going to be discussing this with all the cities also, because if we decide to move forward, it's going to take a partnership with those municipalities.
So saying, GK, when were those notices sent out?
Patricia, is Patricia here? It was probably Friday. Okay. Probably Friday. But we intend to continue those discussions because as I said, it's critically important that we partner with our municipalities, and we're going to be effective on this.
GK, all the way through your discussion here, I have not heard the sheriff's office mentioned.
We have talked with the sheriff's department. We met with the sheriff's department last week on this, and one of the things, we had several meetings, and I was under the impression that the SO was going to be invited to that, and we failed to invite them. And so we had a special meeting with the sheriff's department last week, and we heard their concerns, and we appreciate the concerns of the sheriff's department. They raised some very good issues, and quite frankly, as we move forward, the sheriff's department is going to be a major partner in our meetings, because we simply have to know. But yes, Commissioner, we met with them. It was somewhat late, and we apologize to the SO on that. We surely didn't mean to not include them in those meetings, but we were still, quite frankly, trying to get our arms wrapped around this thing. And so the ordinance or the statute is, and Chris, if you'd like to jump in at any time, but the statute is fairly specific as to what we can do. We can restrict the location of game rooms to specific areas of the county. We can prohibit a game room location within a certain distance of a school, regular place of worship, or residential neighborhood. And we can restrict the number of game rooms that may operate in a specific area of the county. So
sounds an awful lot like the sexually oriented business.
Quite a bit, and what it also requires, or what it also allows us to do, is to determine the hours of business. You might remember when Ms. Travis came to us, one of her concerns was that there was a house that was in the neighborhood, and there were vehicles coming mostly at nighttime, early mornings, very disruptive to the neighborhood, that type of deal. So this allows us to have a control over the hours of business. It also requires that there be a permitting process, and that for those individuals that want to engage in a game room activity, then they need to fill out an application, and there's a fee that we can charge them. It's up to $1,000 per license, and the renewal is $1,000 also. And it's up to amount that would cover costs to do the licensing.
Is that for 1 year?
Yes. So, but it does other things too. The statute allows for individuals, either in the county case, it either a peace officer or a designated county employee. Okay, so remember, it could be a law enforcement officer, or it could be someone like a code enforcement person who is not a commissioned peace officer. They would have the authority to go into these businesses and determine how many machines that they have and if they have a license. And that's a civil action. It's not a criminal action, so there's not a need for a search warrant because it's a required activity that you be permitted. Then it allows us to go in and inspect that permit. Same way with sexually oriented businesses. Same way with wrecking yards, and I'll give you an example. The Alcoholic Beverage Commission, state agency that regulates liquor licenses, they have an absolute authority to go in and inspect that bar to make sure that they're following the law and they have all the licenses that they need. So it's different than a criminal activity, and so that's probably one of the biggest things that I see personally. I see is that you don't need a search warrant and things like that. You have the absolute right to go in because it's the county that is issuing the license. And we have an absolute right to go in and inspect to make sure that they're complying with the terms of that license.
And we can delegate that absolute right to the cities through an interlocal agreement.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's my understanding. That's how Harris County has done that with the city of Houston. I believe they probably have other ILAs with some of their other municipalities also.
So, and I should know this, but just refresh my memory on how these 8-liners differ from slot machines.
8-liners are, and I'm going to need to look at a couple of people to help me on this, but let me try first. Slot machines are a for-profit deal where you put your money in, you pull the one-armed bandit, and if you hit all cherries, well then you win a big cash prize. 8-liners are that you either buy tokens and you put your money in, and basically if you win, you get some type of value that is, I believe it's not greater than $5, which is.
So I'm going to sit there and spend a whole lot of money to get nothing worth more than $5.
The problem is you do.
I'm telling you what the legal aspect is, but the underlying aspect is that you get a lot more than $5. You know, and
well, we have no choice. We do not have the choice of just simply saying we're not going to allow 8-liners.
The utilization of 8-liners is authorized, but the illegal gambling aspect of 8-liners is a criminal offense, and our law enforcement departments, both the sheriff's department and municipalities, they are actively going after 8-liners, and we have for a long time. Because you might remember, Commissioner Johnson, I think we were storing all of the machines. There were like 800 or 900 machines that we had confiscated. We were storing them out at your facility, your maintenance facility.
And mine as well.
That's right. Because
we used to run over them with
that's what we did.
Heavy equipment periodically in order to destroy them.
Well, you have to destroy them, you know. And
we did.
You know, and the problem is if you put them for auction, someone may buy them, but you may see them in your community again in the not so distant future. So anyway, there are penalties. There are civil penalties that are involved in this, and it's an everyday penalty of up to $10,000. And there's a criminal penalty also.
Judge asked, could we outlaw the use of 8-liners? Could we outlaw game rooms?
Understand the definition of a game room is 6 or more machines.
I got the definition. Can we just say that we're not going to have game rooms in Tarrant County?
I don't know. I don't believe so.
Commissioner, I'm going to brief you in closing as well, but to outlaw game rooms, the statute does not allow you to do that. It allows you to restrict for not outlaw.
Okay.
So it brings up to where we are today. And today, as I said, you've heard what we have done at staff level in preparing to ask you all to give us some more clear direction. There's some things I think that you need to consider. First of all, understand that counties historically have not had zoning authority nor code enforcement authority. And if we take on this responsibility and it becomes our responsibility to enforce this countywide, then I will tell you that we do not have the resources, internal resources, to do this.
With the rules or laws surrounding ETJs, can we basically delegate that authority and say whatever rules or laws are in place in the cities, they will extend, and will again let the cities police their ETJs?
That's going to be, and I see you writing that question down. Let us research that, because we have not asked that question of the DA's office yet. But it's a very good question too.
Because we have no dirt in Tarrant County, I don't believe, that is not within somebody's ETJ, and that's very much unlike.
I believe there's one small piece up around where the three counties meet at Briar.
And we need to change the county line to make that.
I don't want to go through changing the county line, no.
Well, a question I have is that, okay, you can have 5 and you're not considered a gaming room.
That's correct.
So if you have 6 or more, what else do they put in these facilities that is an issue? Is it strictly these 8-liners?
I don't have an answer to that. I can find out for you, Commissioner, but I don't have an answer for that. I would make an assumption that either 8-liners or other gambling machines, this is really not a game room. It really turns into a gambling
house. With all the attendant crime associated therewith. People gather, they drink, they argue, they cuss and fuss, they cut and shoot.
Yeah, and in fact, I believe that several. I think a couple of months ago they actually had a homicide in one of them.
Okay, so did indeed. These places sell liquor.
No, they don't.
No, they don't.
You can bring your liquor in.
You know, Commissioner, I'll need to talk with Harris County and some that regulate these things. You know,
I see Trey Overton just dying to stand up and come forward.
Well, and if he'd like to, that would be great. He's
turning red over about 3 shades of red. So.
Well, Trey and I have had conversations before about this, and I'm assuming, Trey, do you visit these things quite a bit yourself? I didn't. But you know, quite frankly, we don't know the answers to that because we still have a lot of work to do on this. So we'll, you know, you raise an interesting question, Judge Whitley. You've raised an interesting question. We need to get back to the court about. We need to have more conversations with our municipalities, simply because we don't have the resources.
And that's why I'm saying,
I understand.
Most of the municipalities address this, or do they have? Trey, would you mind coming up here for a second?
Well, and then while he's doing that, so regarding the notice that was sent, you said it was just sent on Friday?
Yeah.
Okay, just to let people know that this would be addressed today.
That we would have a discussion about this.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So then moving forward, what's going to be our communication plan with the cities? And the only reason why I ask that is just yesterday I was meeting with Mayor Jensen and Chief Dye and Tom Hart, and they had yet to hear about it. And I understand that was Monday. The notices went out Friday. But obviously, I know that City of Arlington, that they've done a tremendous amount of work on it as the Spring Prairie. So,
and we've had a lot more conversation. Obviously, we've had a lot of conversations with Arlington and Fort Worth simply because they're the 2 largest cities, and we had to gauge their thoughts about that. And our goal, obviously, is to make sure, we always lack in communications. We always try hard, but we don't cover it all. But our goal was to contact and deal directly with the city managers. Sure. And I know there's some smaller cities or towns that don't have managers, but we use the mayor's council and the connectivity there with those municipalities to try to get the word out. As we move forward, we're going to develop a much better communication process. But what we wanted to do today was simply to allow them, they can either be here or, we stream live so that they could at least hear this conversation.
I'd like to comment that certainly relationships with our municipal partners is critical. We don't have the expertise, the personnel, we don't have the bandwidth to deal with this internally. We've got to have relationships with our city partners to do the enforcement on this. But the fact is that the legislature has given to counties the authority to do this.
That's correct.
And we've got to do something with the county. I appreciate Ms. Travis bringing this to our attention and keeping our focus on it. But this is a county issue that we have to deal with our city partners. We can't shift the weight to the cities. The legislature gave us the authority.
Okay, that's what I want to understand a little bit better, because I hear what you're saying, but instead of us imposing something on the 41 different cities, if they're already in the process and they have the authority within their city, wait a minute. Trey, come up here.
The cities do not have the authority on game rooms.
Trey?
Yes, sir.
Talk to us about what Arlington is doing with regards to game rooms right now.
Right now, nothing, because we did it 10 years ago, Judge. These game rooms were problems for our community, much as what has been, I think, described by the neighborhood folks that have come and talked to you all. They are concerns for crime. There were high crime areas. There were negative influences in the neighborhood occurring. And we worked together with our police department and our planning department at the time, and we took a zoning interpretation forward, and we had about 80 or 90 of these throughout the city at the time, and went through a process, deliberative, made a zoning determination, allowed for them to go through a variance to the zoning board of adjustment and such. And today, while I can't tell you I don't have any in town, I don't have 90, and they pop up here and there. Occasionally when we find out about them, we go out and we go through a similar process. So we very much share everyone's concern along these lines. I think we're leading edge on it from a land use planning perspective. And just as we shared with GK, or I shared, our only concern as you all talk about this, we'd very much be a resource and an ally, except for the concern of how it's kind of a one-size-fits-all concern. And I would hope that if you go forward with some kind of ordinance, we've also talked about adjusting the statute a little bit, which would make it clear for you to be able to do this, is that cities have the ability to either opt in or opt out of that regulation, or that there's some other kind of inclusiveness so that we don't actually have an unintended consequence where certain parts of the county have taken care of the issue in their neighborhood at the time, that we somehow go backwards in time, at least in the Arlington community. I realize there's problems elsewhere in the county. We want to help be part of that solution, but we also want to make sure that we don't fix one spot to hurt another. We kind of work together throughout the whole 41 cities.
Well, in other ways, what we've tried to do is I know that there are some counties who want a lot of zoning authority. Because we have so little unincorporated area, I don't think as a court we've ever asked for a whole lot of zoning authority within the unincorporated area. And I'm not sure why we would not. Do you have ETJ that you have not annexed?
I believe we do not have any.
So it might not pertain to you as much as it might pertain to Fort Worth because they're gonna end up in Oklahoma one day. But at least from that perspective, would they, from an ETJ area, have authority to be able to in some way legislate that right now? Or maybe we need to be going to the legislature and saying, extend the city's ability to regulate these types of facilities in their ETJ. But I agree with Commissioner Brooks. We don't have the numbers, the ability, and I don't want to expand to the point to where we then end up taking on responsibility for regulating these things county-wide, and we then find ourselves in conflict with something that you have on the books already, or that one of the other 40 cities has on the books right now. That, for the small amount of unincorporated area, it would seem to me like we just need to say to the legislature, if you've got under X amount, or if you choose to enter an interlocal agreement with the cities, that we're gonna let them handle that, or at least we'll make the decision as a court whether or not we wanna make them, allow them to do that, or whether we want to expand our ability to do that.
Most of the complaints I'm hearing are in some city, very few out in the county.
That's correct.
Well, and I guess at that point, I would try to get them to go to their city council and affect that change there, because again, all I see is that we'll conflict with 41 cities.
Absolutely.
From that perspective, and so I would, this is one of those things I'd a whole lot sooner say, you got it, have fun.
And if I can comment on one or two of those things. I think one thing that we need to explore is if we decide to enact this ordinance, that if we contract with cities to enforce the ordinance, I am not so sure the question hasn't been asked, at least, does this simply give the cities another tool if they need it to regulate this type of activity? Because with the city of Fort Worth, for example, they became very aggressive, and I don't want to speak too much about this, but they became very aggressive in their zoning and code enforcement. And their activities were a lawsuit followed, and they are now under basically a court order that kind of a cease and desist until it's all cleared up. And that thing has been sitting out there for a long time. I believe that's one reason. But I'm not so sure that a municipality, in fact, I don't believe a municipality is covered with what a game room is. Okay? Now, we need to continue to ask that question. The value in being able to license a facility is that if you have the authority to license, then you have the authority to inspect. Now, that doesn't seem like a big thing, but rather than sending police in to do undercover type activities so you create enough evidence to get a search warrant, you don't need to do that. You need to simply inspect the facility to determine if they meet the requirements of the code or of the ordinance. You know, I would think that we need to look at does this help the municipalities if we give them the enforcement authority and let them use that authority and ability any way that they want to.
Right.
It gives them just one more arrow in their quiver.
What you said was us contracting with the city, which implies that we're fixing to spend money contracting with
pay the cities to do this.
To do what they want.
In Harris County, there's no exchange of monies.
Well, in Harris County, they've got over 2 million people that live in the unincorporated area.
I understand, but I'm telling you
we
that
got 105 days to get the legislature to do something that will allow the cities to do what they want to do and get the counties out of it, or at least give the counties the options of getting out of it. And I would hope that that'd be what we try to do.
I would hope that
next time I meet with one of those senators, I'll go down there and talk to them.
Well, sure, there's a legislative session going on. This was an activity we started a little over a year ago.
A year ago.
And this is a briefing to the court. That's why we keep saying we need to talk with our partners. And believe me, this county believes its municipalities are partners, and we work with them.
Right.
And so we can explore some of those things, but we wanted to bring this as a briefing to you simply because of two reasons. We haven't briefed you in a long time on this, and second of all, we simply needed some guidance, and that's why we're here today.
I would submit to my colleagues that for us to sit back and do nothing is not acceptable. The legislature has put the authority to do this on us, and until they take it off of us, it's our responsibility. And it's anybody's guess as to whether or not we can get them to change the law. If we can, I'm all for that. I'd rather not be the one to have to do this. But right now, we're it.
The legislation that was passed regarding this, I hear that it was Harris County that did this. And usually when they do something, it's the nation of Harris County that brackets the bill. But this is,
It's a statute that we had printed out. It looks like this is a bracket bill.
so is it a bracketed bill, or is it a bill that pertains to all counties?
It pertains to certain counties, Judge.
With populations over 4 million?
There's several different counties that fall within there. Tarrant County is also one.
I believe they dropped it to 2 million.
Well, we just recently then became under the bill.
Like I said, it's no more than maybe 2, possibly 4 years old, or 3 or 4 years old.
So, Commissioner, I hear what you're saying, but it sounds like that they really didn't give that authority to all counties. They just chose to do it in a couple of big counties, 3 to be exact.
And it doesn't change the fact that the responsibility is ours.
Well, and I understand that, but I'm of the opinion that I would certainly try to get it to the point to where we have the flexibility of giving it to the cities. Because they're the ones that...
To 2 counties. And
we just happen to grow up a little bit.
So, so our goal here was simply to get your comments. We still need to do work with the cities because they raise pertinent information, and as far as staff is concerned, we're not opposed at all for the cities to, if they believe that they need to get legislation passed where they can opt out, well, then that would be good also. One thing we might consider about the extraterritorial ETJ is that we currently contract with municipalities to provide county services in ETJs.
But I'm going to again say this. If we're the ones that were responsible, then either we're going to be contracting, and that's going to be a nightmare because we've got 41 different contracts we're going to have, or we're going to be sending our law enforcement people into their cities, and that's just not going to work, in my opinion.
Well, and we tend to agree with you, Judge, because, the Sheriff's Department is, it's our largest department, and they're pretty busy. And so this is an extra burden, but we brought that issue up. We don't have the resources currently to be the one who enforces this ordinance. Now, if the court decides that you all want us to do this, and I'm not making a recommendation, but if you decide to do this, I will be the first to stand up here and say the Sheriff's Department or needs additional resources, or we need to create another department to do this regulation. And I am not supportive of creating another department.
I'm not supportive of that either, but the Harris County model seems to be working, at least in Harris County, where they work with their municipal jurisdictions to do the inspection, to do the enforcement.
They actually do the licensing also.
I don't want to step on Arlington's toes. I'd rather use them as a template and an example of how to create a situation that works.
Again, Commissioner, I understand that, but I think in Harris County, you might have a handful of municipalities. How many municipalities does Harris County have?
They have quite a few.
Well, but now, wait a minute.
Well, they have Baytown, Pasadena, Lamar, I mean, Humboldt, Tomball, Katy.
But of the 4.6 million, over 2 million people are in the unincorporated area. They are.
Yeah, but Tarrant County is much like Harris County in that about half the population lives in the city of Fort Worth, and the other half doesn't.
No, I would take argument with that because I think a lot of Fort Worth lives outside of Tarrant County.
Well, so anyway, we're continuing to work on this, okay? And obviously, we seek your direction as we go forward. We're not here to make recommendations to you today. This is an update.
Do we have other folks in the county that are going to make any statements, or do I need to call on our public?
We've asked the district attorney's office to brief us on other legal issues relating to this and close.
Okay.
I will tell you, and Ms. South mentioned, we're seeing, just for court's information, in Harris County, what they're reporting is that this is not like an open business. You know, they have very few that are permitted, but they're finding them in residences and they're finding them in the back rooms of other existing businesses. That's the type of environment that this program is in. So,
I like to do whatever we can to get rid of it. I have 3 people who have turned in audience participations. DeMarcus Williams, I believe, is indicated did not wish to speak at this time. Okay. He says we need regulations, but he's not wishing to speak at this time. The next individual I have is Tabitha Williams. If you will come forward. Now, when you fill out your audience participation, I don't believe you signed it. So at least stop by the clerk's desk here and you'll need to sign this. And then come forward and please restate your name and your address as you come forward to speak. And then next will be Ms. Travis. Why don't you let her sign because she has not signed.
I'm Tabitha Williams.
Just pull that mic down to you, Ms. Williams, and
There you
speak
go.
into it.
I'm Tabitha Williams. I live at 5408 West Creek Drive, which is the same area that Rebecca lives in. We have a lot of problems with game rooms. I appreciate you, Commissioner Brooks, for kind of trying to push this issue that this is where the responsibility lies right now. Even if you want to change it, something still needs to be done right now in the meantime. It feels like I hear a lot of, it's not our problem, it should be somebody else's problem, but right now this is where we are. Game rooms bring with them a lot of other issues. I have a list 4 pages long just from 2018 and 2019 of non-gambling offenses that have happened at known gambling locations. Assault, arson, robbery, burglary, narcotics violations, weapons violations. I have a separate list, 4 pages long, just from the beginning of 2018 of non-gambling facilities that have had gambling violations because a lot of them operate, since we have this loophole right now in Fort Worth because of this pending litigation and they're not enforcing much of anything. We have businesses that are operating in these little backroom businesses. They say they are a photo studio, a gift shop, a tax office, but they're actually operating these game rooms outside also of normal business hours. We have one that doesn't even open until 9 o'clock at night most of the time, which means that they don't get a lot of attention from the fire department, code compliance. We have one that has a locked gate in front of their front door. They let people in one at a time. That's got to be a fire violation, a safety violation. but they're not operating during normal business hours, so nobody knows about it or pays much attention to it. It puts everybody at risk. We had one that was robbed during the daytime, and that's what got me started with this, is we had one that got robbed in a standalone location that moved into a strip where my husband works because they got robbed. And I feel like that just puts everybody else at risk. People don't want to go to those businesses because of the other people that are there. And if they get robbed, it just puts a lot of other people as possible collateral damage. And that is my concern. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Thank you very much. Thank you. Next is Rebecca Travis.
Good morning, Judge Whitley and Commissioners. I want to thank you for allowing me the opportunity to come and speak with you guys again. I reside in Southwest Fort Worth in the Wedgwood area. And 13 months ago, I brought to you a presentation on game room regulations and how you are the only source we have to regulate those game rooms. Only counties can. And only 11 counties in the state of Texas can. It is not all counties. We were part of House Bill 3453, which said, Part 9, a county of more than 1.8 million, which is Tarrant County, next to a county of 2.2 million, which is Dallas County, can regulate game rooms. So there's really only 11 counties in Texas that can.
Is that contiguous with those two counties? And then also Harris County, is that how they?
Harris County was the first one.
Okay.
And then because Harris County started regulating these game rooms and pushing them out, they went to the game rooms then went to the counties surrounding Harris County. So the counties around Harris County then went to the legislature and said, we want to regulate game rooms too. And so they came up with a description of their county. You know, if it's next to the Gulf Coast, if it's a population of this, they each have their own little special definition for those 11 counties. So it was actually the city council that went to the legislature that said, we want this. Because the city, when they put out their game room regulations in 2014, they got sued. And then they got sued again. And it's just continued to go up the ladder that cities, municipalities do not have this authority in the state of Texas. And they can't get that authority, and they haven't been able to get it. But the counties have.
Well, you heard Arlington talk about their ability to.
And Arlington will find that once they're sued, I bet they haven't been sued yet. But Arlington does go to the talks with the city of Fort Worth all the time about what are you doing, how is it going, what are we going to do when it happens to us, because they can't. They just haven't, had that opportunity come up yet for them. By the way, there are 34 municipalities in Harris County. I looked that up while I was back there for you to give you an idea.
Thank you, Ms. Travis.
But 34, 41, not a whole big difference there.
No, you're right.
And I think if you read and really dig into the Harris County regulations, which if you go to the other counties that have regulations, they just took what Harris County did and went with it. So if you go to those other 10 counties and bring up their regulations, they're the same as Harris County. And I know because I went and did it. I went and looked and said, what are the other people doing? Where's this going? I think it's great that you guys are looking at this. I'm excited that you are, because I know the problems I have in my neighborhood with it. We still have the same problems as we did before. They're still operating. One of you asked, what else do they do besides having the game rooms in there? I know in Arlington, there's a couple bars that have game rooms. And the game rooms are in back. and they play their little games, and it spits out a little ticket of what they want. They take their little ticket, they give it to the bartender, they come back an hour later, and the bartender has an envelope with their money in it of what they want at the game machines. And believe me, it's more than $5, because who's going to keep feeding that machine to win $5? They're not. And, you know, I think some of the ones in my neighborhood are not quite that open, or are more open about paying it. They, you know, pretty much you win on your way out the door, they'll give you the money. So it is a problem. I think the regulations are necessary to protect our neighborhoods, our property values, the businesses in the neighborhood that people don't want to go visit now because there's a game room next door. The regulations will also give law enforcement the much needed tools that they need to push the game rooms out of our neighborhood. You know, it will reduce the personal and property crimes associated with game rooms, such as gambling, weapons, drug use, drug sales, assaults, robberies. Officer Vargas is here today. Commissioner Brooks, you told me bring some friends next time. Well, our MPO...
I did tell you that, yes.
Yeah, you did. So our MPO, Officer Vargas is here, and his supervisor, Officer McCarthy, are back here. And I know Officer McCarthy was saying, I can tell them what else is in those game rooms. You know, because some of them serve the alcohol, some of them don't, some of them it's just games, some of them it's drugs. Last week, or the week before, I forget which it was now, there was a car leaving. He left the game room, he went up the hill, he didn't use a turn signal, they pulled him over. There was a set of scales in the car, and it had white powder on it, and they were looking in the car for meth, and he said, well, I don't have any meth. You know, criminals aren't too smart sometimes. He says, I don't have any meth, I just sold it all at the game room. So we know that, you know, drug use and drug sales happen in game rooms. You know, it's kind of documented there. I was going to mention a couple things, regulations that are important to me. One is that in the Harris County regulations, 1.2E is the interlocal agreement. And I think that, you know, just like myself having a small business, every time I enter into an agreement with any of the school districts, I'm also entering into an agreement with you because of the interlocal agreements that are between all the different areas. So I think when I read Harris County's regulations, what I read is Harris County regulates and enforces the game rooms in the unincorporated areas. Those municipalities that have that interlocal agreement are the ones that are regulating and enforcing the regulations in their municipality. So Fort Worth would still be the ones to send the fire department in to do that fire inspection and code compliance, which right now code compliance can go in these places, but the only thing they can do is look to see whether or not they have that little sticker on that machine. And that's the only thing they can do. Yes, sir.
What I hear you saying, and I think it may go along with what Commissioner Brooks was indicating, is that maybe the alternative is to get all of the cities together to uniformly agree upon a regulation, but because they do not currently have that authority, then maybe the county, but that would require 41 acknowledgments, and maybe the Harris County model is what everybody, at least in Harris County. Yeah. And so maybe that's the step we need to move toward if we can't get the legislature to give that authority to the individual cities to do whatever they wish to do in that regard. Because I think I heard you say that Fort Worth was sued because the legislature didn't specifically give cities the authority to regulate these game rooms.
Mm-hmm. Judge, I agree with what you just said, except that I would approach it as a two-track strategy, both at the same time.
So that if one doesn't happen, we're moving down the line.
That's correct. That's exactly correct.
And
please wrap. We have a time, but you keep going, and if you could kind of.
Okay, and Fort Worth did try to get it when they went, and they said nope, only the counties. So that's why they pushed that. I think that having the open windows in game rooms, typically they're covered, protects people knowing what's in there. It also protects law enforcement when they get a call and they have to answer there, whether or not, they're walking into somebody with a baseball bat or a fight, or, is there, somebody in there with a gun. So I think the open windows are real important to me. Game room hours are real important to me. How close they are to each other and to my neighborhood. I know that just passing the regulations isn't going to push them out of my neighborhood. I know that they're going to be grandfathered in. I know that they will eventually go on and be pushed out because you have to grandfather them. And
I don't know that that's true.
Okay, I'd love not to grandfather them, but I think you're going to have to grandfather them. But the minute they change names, and believe me, they change names often, the minute they change ownership, the minute that they have a violation, then their permit can be pulled, and that will force them to have to leave.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Travis.
Anyone else wishing to? Okay.
I'd just like to say that it is not just Southwest Fort Worth.
Oh, no.
It's Southeast Fort Worth.
It's all over.
It's Arlington. It's White Settlement. It's all over.
So we're going to continue to do our research on this and communicate with our municipalities. Judge, you said there was 105 days left in the session. We'll know in 105 days if there's going to be legislation that exempts the cities or not.
Exactly.
So, all right. Members of the court, we have.
Meanwhile, you can be working on a Harris County-like ordinance for us to look at.
We're already beginning to do that.
Thank you, sir.
We're doing that with the district attorney's office. If we could now move to item number B, this is our public health updates. Mr. Tenasia is here to address the court at this time.
Make it short. We don't even know how.
Yes, sir. I'll try to speed through. All right, so we're back again with an influenza update. That's kind of the hot topic of the season, but before I start on that, I do want to tell you that norovirus, which is the stomach flu, is also circulating in our community. So a lot of people are confused with this, so I just want to make sure this is the respiratory flu, the actual flu.
Chief, could you wait for a minute?
Yes.
So just to give you a quick situational awareness, nationally we're back again. Most of the southern states are at high activity level, as you can see with the deep reds on the map. 2 weeks ago, I came back and looks like Texas was having a little bit of a decline in activity. It was still high, but it was a lighter shade. We're gone back up to a deeper red. So we're back up again, and this is sort of typical peak in February, so it's not unusual. Again, Tarrant County view, we're changing colors. It's more widespread, not as deeper blue and purples as we saw earlier, but it's more widespread in most zip codes of the county. And I know last time you all had a few questions on how we collect our data, so I gather some information. So we have what is called a Essence Syndromic Surveillance System. It's tied to hospital ERs. We collect data from all of North Texas. There are about 108 hospitals in total. About close to 100 are hooked up to our system. 46 of those hospital ERs voluntarily report influenza-like illness. So it's not confirmed cases. It's the chief complaint that I came in with a sore throat and a fever in the absence of any other known cause. That's what's recorded. Now, based on that, Tarrant County zip codes are filtered out. So I could go to Dallas County or be in Plano or somewhere else and be diagnosed with an influenza-like illness and still be reported as a Tarrant County resident. Within Tarrant County, there are 18 hospitals that are participating, 3 university or college clinics, and 1 large employer that has a good occupational health program. So that's where most of our data comes from. Not all clinical locations participate. One of the hospital systems has, I think, a couple 3 freestanding ERs that also plug in their data through their hospital system. But most other freestanding ERs don't report. Private doctors' offices don't report in this system. You had remembered very correctly that there was an effort to recruit, private doctors' practices to report such data, and that was called the ILI Net. It's a voluntary system. It's very resource intensive. So over the years, it started to decline. Nationally, we have about 2,200 providers reporting. It's a sentinel network, so not every provider reports, just a handful. Within the state of Texas, there are about 100, and in Tarrant County, there's only one that actually participates in that. So some of that data makes into our report, but majority of our data is based on the syndromic surveillance effort that we have, direct reporting electronically from the ERs based on chief complaint. So the national picture, we're again on an uptrend. If you look at the red line with the little triangles, as you can see, we're trending up again. Last season was that high blue line, which was very heavy season, but we're following more like 2016-17 at this point, which was, it wasn't a mild season in any case, but it wasn't as bad as last year. So in this map, a local Tarrant County picture, again, the dark green line is the current season. We're again trending up, but we're below our peak that we hit in around Christmas time. And so that's not bad, but it's not good either. Again, a Texas comparison, our green line is Tarrant County, the dark blue line is Texas. As a whole, as you saw on the map, we're trending up again, and this is showing in the graphs as well. This is national hospitalization view. Again, the green line up top is seniors above the age of 65. It's trending back up for a couple of weeks, but is not as bad as we saw late December. Overall, not a bad picture, but still, it's the flu, and people do die with the flu if they end up in a hospital. A lot of times there's complications and hard to recover.
Have we had a flu-related death in Tarrant County?
Not in Tarrant County. Again, reminder, adult flu deaths are not reportable, so that's anecdotal, so we can't say for sure on that. But pediatric deaths are reportable, and we haven't had a report so far in Tarrant County. And very timely question, because this is the pneumonia and influenza mortality surveillance report. So they look at what's the most common complication of flu that causes death is pneumonia a lot of times. So compared to last year, we haven't really even, we're kind of below the epidemic threshold for those deaths. We peaked above it a little bit, I think around Christmas time, but we're back below what would be normal baseline. So we're not seeing a whole lot of deaths this year. Last year was a very, very bad year. As you can see, the red line was way above the trend that we're supposed to be seeing. Again, pediatric deaths are a good indicator of what's going on. Last year was a very bad year. This year, comparatively mild. Of course, we'd like to see no deaths, but flu is very widespread, so it does occur. Here's what's latest. CDC has started to put this out, so it's very helpful. Their national estimates that over between 10 to 11 million flu illnesses, about 5 to 6 million medical visits related to the flu, and about 118,000 to 141,000 flu hospitalizations. So relatively not a bad year, but still a heavy year, as you saw earlier in the season. And again, we're in the thick of it right now. So the message remains the same, because that's part of the reason why there's not an individualized reporting, because whether we talk to an individual or we talk to the general public through avenues like this, the message is the same. Always take your flu shot. If you haven't taken it, it's never too late to take it as long as flu is around in the season. Stay home when you're sick and get on antivirals immediately as soon as you think you have the flu. Or if you know that you're in close contact with somebody, if you have a family member that has been diagnosed with a confirmed flu, ask your provider to put you on Tamiflu as a prophylactic. That's all I have, unless there are any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Danny.
Then finally, members of the court, item C is the legislative update. Mr. Schaffner has included a memorandum in your packet. Be more than happy to try to answer any questions you may have.
The one thing I would just add, I have asked him to kind of look at the appraisal process. There's been a lot of conversation about that. I've asked him specifically to look at maybe some specialty panels for the appeals process, and also the selection of the board. Right now, governmental entities select or elect those board members. I think it might be much better if there was a combination to where the private sector had some input on who those board members might be. It might be the real estate, it might be the residential real estate council, it might be the commercial real estate council, or it might be the business sector, or it might not be any of those. But continuously, I think, because those board members are elected by governmental entities. You know, we all have that vote that we do, and we get so many votes.
We don't even get one appointee.
We don't even get one appointee, but I think the perception is that because we're the ones that are electing them, that, you know, we're influencing their ultimate decision. So I really feel like that we should consider the possibility of those folks being appointed by someone other than the bodies that benefit from whatever those appraised values might end up being. So I asked him to do that.
What about a public member? What about a public member?
Well, maybe a public majority member. And that could be, again, it could be somebody from a you know, and how those are appointed. But I mean, I think of folks that might not be, I don't know, we're all somewhat influenced or affected by what those appraisals do. There's not a single one of us that's not. Maybe the residential folks would be too heavily focused on residential, commercial, and commercial. But what I'm just saying is right now, by those folks being elected by, you know, these votes from the governmental entities that ultimately end up benefiting from whatever those appraised values might be, it may be far better to have it if not certainly a majority of those folks should be maybe appointed by somebody or approved by somebody other than those governmental entities. And if the governmental entities still might elect something less than a majority, that would still maybe give some influence there. But I mean, I've asked Russell to put together some ideas. I know there's a lot going on around the state right now. Speaker Bonin had something last session. I believe that Senator Nelson may have something now going on. So I've asked him to kind of look at that, to detail that, and maybe come to us with some suggestions. And the only reason I'm bringing it up today is so that we might begin thinking about it and talking with some folks, because I do feel like that a lot of times the biggest complaint that we hear is about the appraisal process and the appeals process within that appraisal process. And so I think we might try to formulate some ideas on that. Anything else?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
Then we will recess our open meeting to proceed to close to discuss items exempted under Section 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code. Return from our closed session. There being no items to discuss at this time, we are adjourned. Did y'all get on and off?